Ethan Reyes, a 30-year-old millionaire and CEO, took a final glance in the mirror of his luxurious penthouse. His reflection was almost unrecognizable. His usually dark hair was dyed a plain brown, his blue eyes hidden by brown contacts, and a fake mustache completed his transformation. Dressed in the uniform of a server at the Windsor Hotel, the crown jewel of his hospitality empire, Ethan muttered to himself, "It's now or never," and took a deep breath. Ethan had inherited the Windsor Hotel chain from his father 2 years ago. But instead of prosperity, he found himself overwhelmed with guest complaints and declining revenue. Frustrated by his inability to uncover the issues from the top, Ethan devised a daring plan. For 1 month, he would work undercover at his own hotel, observing the daily operations and interactions between employees and guests up close. Heart-pounding, he left his penthouse and headed to the Windsor. At the personnel office, he introduced himself as Eric Rivera, the new summer hire. The head of personnel, a tired-looking middle-aged woman named Maria, greeted him with a faint smile. "Welcome, Eric. I hope you're ready to work hard. We're understaffed, and high season's just beginning," she said. Ethan nodded, feeling both nervous and determined. "I'm here to do my best, ma'am," he replied. Maria handed him an access card and a schedule. "Your shift starts in 15 minutes. Head to the 4th floor and report to Lucas, the housekeeping supervisor. He'll give you your assignments." As he stepped into the service elevator, Ethan felt the luxury he'd always taken for granted fading away. Now it seemed distant and intimidating, as if the very hotel he had once been so proud of was suddenly overwhelming him. When he reached the 4th floor, a sturdy man in his 40s with a stern expression greeted him. "You must be the new guy," Lucas grumbled. "Take this cart and start with rooms 401 to 410. You've got 30 minutes per room. Finish early, help the others. Run late, you stay until it's done. Got it?" Ethan nodded, taking the heavy cleaning cart from Lucas. As he pushed it down the hallway, he overheard Lucas muttering to himself, "These new hires never stick around." The next few hours were a blur of sweaty sheets, damp towels, and cleaning supplies. Accustomed to the comfort of his office, Ethan found himself struggling with the physical labor. His hands, soft from years of desk work, quickly began to chafe from handling cleaning chemicals. At lunchtime, Ethan sank into a chair in the employee cafeteria, observing his coworkers. Most sat in silence, exhaustion etched onto their faces. A young waitress sitting across from him offered a gentle smile and introduced herself. "I'm Mia. First day?" she asked. Ethan returned the smile and nodded. "Yeah, is it that obvious?" She laughed softly. "Just a little," she said, her voice warm and friendly. "Don't worry. Everyone feels lost on their first day," Mia reassured Ethan with a sympathetic smile. "If you need help, just ask." As they talked, Ethan was struck by how little he knew about his employees' daily lives. Mia shared details of her long shifts, difficult guests, and the constant push to uphold the hotel's luxury standards despite scarce resources. "It's not the work, really," Mia whispered, glancing around to make sure no one else was listening. "It's the managers, especially Mr. Villanueva. He treats us like we're replaceable." Ethan frowned. He vaguely remembered Villanueva, the general manager he had hired the year before based purely on his impressive resume. What exactly did she mean? Before Mia could elaborate, a loud voice echoed through the cafeteria, cutting their break short. "Break's over. Everyone, back to work." As the staff hurried to throw away their food, Mia gave him an apologetic smile and disappeared down the hallway. Returning to his cleaning cart, Ethan was overwhelmed with mixed emotions. Guilt gnawed at him for not paying closer attention to his employees' conditions. Determination built within him, fueled by a curiosity to dig deeper into the issues facing the Windsor Hotel. Little did he know, his journey as a server would plunge him into a series of revelations and challenges that would forever change the future of his hotel, and everyone working in it. As the days passed, Ethan immersed himself in his role. His once soft hands became rough from harsh cleaning chemicals, and his muscles ached from physical labor. But his commitment only strengthened with each new discovery about the hotel's reality. One morning, as he was cleaning the presidential suite, he overheard voices from the hallway. He immediately recognized the deep, authoritative tone of Villanueva, the general manager. "We need to launch that new VIP service now," Villanueva said sternly. Revenues are down 15% this quarter, and Mr. Reyes is starting to ask uncomfortable questions. Ethan tensed at hearing his own name and moved closer to the door to listen more intently. But sir, responded another voice, Maria, the head of personnel. We don't have enough staff to provide 24/7 personalized service for VIP guests. We're already stretched thin. Not my problem, Villanueva snapped. Do more with less, Maria. If you can't manage, I'll find someone who can. Fury boiled inside Ethan. How could Villanueva be so dismissive? He wanted to confront him then and there, but remembered his disguise as Eric the waiter. As an ordinary employee, he didn't have the authority to challenge the general manager. That evening, Ethan joined Mia and other staff members in the cafeteria for dinner. The conversation revolved around the newly announced VIP service. They're going to squeeze every bit of energy out of us for this VIP nonsense, grumbled Ben, a veteran waiter. And I bet we won't see a single extra penny for all the extra work. Mia sighed. The worst part is, they don't even ask us for our ideas. We've got so many suggestions to make the service smoother, but they won't listen. Ethan listened thoughtfully, noting their frustration and ideas that management ignored. He began to see the disconnect between management and staff more clearly, and his resolve to address these issues grew stronger. Seeing an opening, Ethan asked with genuine curiosity, "What kind of ideas do you have?" Mia's face lit up. Well, for starters, we could set up a better communication system between departments. Sometimes a guest will ask for something at reception, and by the time we find out, it's too late. Or we could personalize rooms for our regular guests based on their preferences. Ethan was impressed. These were the kinds of innovative solutions he had been hoping for. That's brilliant, Mia. Why haven't you suggested these changes? Mia's smile faded. I tried once. Mr. Villanueva told me to stick to my duties and stop worrying about things outside my reach. Ethan felt a surge of anger. Villanueva wasn't just overburdening the staff. He was also shutting down valuable ideas that could transform the hotel for the better. In the days that followed, Ethan paid closer attention to the dynamic between employees and management. He saw how supervisors frequently ignored legitimate concerns from the staff. Resources were misused due to poor communication, and the lack of appreciation was palpable, sapping morale from the team. One afternoon, while cleaning a hallway near the lobby, Ethan witnessed something that made his blood run cold. A guest was shouting at a young receptionist, accusing her of losing his reservation. I want to speak to the manager now, he demanded. Villanueva arrived quickly, flashing a polite smile as he placated the guest. But the moment the guest walked away, his expression shifted. He turned to the receptionist, who was visibly shaken. How could you be so careless? He hissed. If you mess up like this again, I'll find someone more competent. The young woman's eyes filled with tears, and Ethan felt an overwhelming urge to step in and defend her. But he restrained himself, reminding himself of his disguise. He couldn't afford to blow his cover just yet. That night, Ethan lay wide awake in the cramped room he shared with two other servers. His mind raced, processing all he had observed. It wasn't just efficiency or customer service at stake, it was the entire work culture. Villanueva's leadership had bred a climate of fear and distrust, where employees were afraid to speak up or take initiative. Ethan knew he had to act, but he realized that real change would require more than simply firing Villanueva. The hotel needed a total cultural transformation, one where employees felt valued and respected. He knew this wouldn't be easy, and that he would likely face resistance, but he was determined. As he finally drifted into a restless sleep, Ethan began to devise a plan. He didn't yet know the full extent of the challenges he would face, or that this journey would test not only his resilience but his very identity. However, he was committed to turning the Windsor Hotel into a place where luxury and respect went hand in hand, for both guests and employees alike. The next morning, just as the first light of dawn began to seep into the city, Ethan dragged himself out of bed, exhausted but resolute, ready to continue his mission. Late into the night, Ethan lay awake, his mind racing with ideas and concerns about how to improve conditions at the Windsor Hotel. The next day, as he pushed his cleaning cart down the fifth-floor hallway, he heard a commotion coming from one of the suites. Approaching cautiously, he saw Lucas, the housekeeping supervisor, embroiled in a heated argument with a sharply dressed, middle-aged executive. "This is unacceptable," the man bellowed. "I've paid a small fortune for this suite, and it's covered in dust. Is this what you call five-star service?" Visibly nervous, Lucas stammered. "Sir, I apologize. We'll send someone right away to fix this." "I don't want apologies," the executive snapped. "I want to speak to the manager now." In that moment, Ethan made a quick decision. He stepped forward and said, "Excuse me, sir. I'm the new server assigned to this floor. If you'll allow me, I'll personally make sure your suite is spotless." The guest eyed him skeptically. "And what makes you think you'll do a better job than the ones who failed in the first place?" Maintaining his calm, Ethan replied, "Sir, I understand your frustration. I'll take as long as it needs to ensure everything is perfect. If you're not satisfied, you're free to speak directly with the manager afterward." The executive considered this for a moment, then said, "Fine. You have 1 hour. If I'm not satisfied, I'll make sure the entire cleaning staff faces consequences." Lucas shot Ethan a wary look before quickly exiting, leaving Ethan alone in the suite. Fully aware that much more was at stake than just this one room, Ethan began cleaning meticulously, paying attention to every detail. For the next hour, he dusted every surface, polished the fixtures, and organized the guests' belongings with precision. When the executive returned, Ethan held his breath as the man carefully inspected every corner. Finally, the guest turned to him, visibly impressed. "I have to admit, this is remarkable," he said. "It's spotless, and you even organized my papers. How did you know how to do that?" Ethan, remembering his role, responded humbly, "My father was an assistant to an executive, sir. He taught me a few tricks about organization." The guest nodded approvingly. "Well done. I'll make sure management hears about your work." After the man left, Ethan released a sigh of relief. He had managed to avert a crisis, but he knew this was just the beginning. The underlying issues plaguing the hotel were much deeper, and he felt the pressure of it all. As he pushed his cleaning cart toward the next room, he suddenly found himself face to face with Villanueva, the general manager. Villanueva's gaze was unreadable as he sized up Ethan. "You're the new guy, aren't you?" Villanueva asked, his tone making Ethan tense. The guest in 507 just called down to reception, singing praises about the new server. Ethan nodded, keeping his expression neutral, wondering what Villanueva was thinking. "Best service he's had in years," Villanueva repeated, eyeing Ethan with a mixture of suspicion and annoyance. Ethan nodded, feeling his pulse quicken. "I was just doing my job, sir," he replied evenly. Villanueva narrowed his eyes. "Just your job? Listen, kid, nobody's irreplaceable around here. If you think you can come in, play the hero, and ignore the chain of command, think again." Ethan's heart pounded. Did Villanueva suspect him? He kept his expression steady. "I don't understand, sir. I was only trying to help." "Help?" Villanueva sneered. "Fine. Since you're so eager, the guest in 610 has been a nightmare all week. Nothing makes her happy. Go see if you can satisfy her demands. If you succeed, maybe I'll reconsider your position here." Without another word, Villanueva walked away, leaving Ethan uneasy. Room 610 was infamous among the staff for housing a particularly difficult guest. He took a deep breath as he approached the door and knocked. "About time," a sharp voice shouted from inside. The door opened to reveal a woman in her 50s, adorned in designer clothing and dripping with jewelry. Her gaze was cold and scrutinizing. "Well? Are you just going to stand there, or are you going to be useful?" Suppressing a sigh, Ethan stepped into the suite, preparing himself for whatever was to come. For the next 2 hours, he faced an onslaught of complaints and requests. The pillows were too soft, the air conditioning too cold, and the minibar lacked her preferred brand of sparkling water. With each grievance, Ethan responded with patience, trying his best to offer creative solutions. He fetched extra pillows, adjusted the room temperature, and even dashed to a nearby store to purchase her specific brand of water. Finally, after what felt like an endless stream of demands, the woman looked at him with a slightly less harsh expression. "At least you know how to do your job," she muttered, in what was perhaps the closest she could get to a compliment. Exhausted but relieved, Ethan turned to leave. But she stopped him with an additional request. "One more thing. I need this dress taken to the dry cleaner and returned within an hour. I'm wearing it to an event tonight, so it can't wait. Ethan glanced at the clock. There was no way he could get the dress to the cleaners and back in time. Refusing, however, could undo all the progress he had made with her. After a moment of thought, he replied, "Ma'am, if you'd permit me, I can personally take care of your dress here at the hotel. We have an express ironing service, and I can have it looking perfect within the hour." The woman eyed him skeptically. "If you ruin my dress, you'll be out of here. Understand?" "Completely, ma'am. I'll handle it with the utmost care," Ethan replied, surprised by his own confidence. For the next hour, he worked tirelessly, drawing on the skills he had picked up from observing the hotel staff, as well as a few techniques he remembered from his life before the Windsor. He pressed, steamed, and inspected every inch of the dress, ensuring it was flawless. Ethan carefully ironed, steamed, and added finishing touches to the dress with a precision that even surprised him. When he finally presented the dress to the guest, she inspected it thoroughly, every second stretching into what felt like an eternity. At last, a small smile broke through her critical expression. "Impressive," she said. "I've never seen anyone at this hotel put in work like that. I'll make sure to mention it in my review." Ethan left the suite feeling as if he'd just run a marathon. He had passed the test, but the emotional strain left him exhausted. For the first time since starting this undercover mission, he began to question if he truly had what it would take to change the Windsor from within. As he walked down the hallway, he spotted Villanueva observing him from a distance. The manager's expression was unreadable, a blend of surprise, suspicion, and something else Ethan couldn't quite place. He knew he had caught Villanueva's attention, but whether this was good or bad remained to be seen. One thing was certain, the stakes were climbing, and he'd have to be more cautious with every step. In the following days, Ethan's reputation for handling difficult guests spread quickly. Management assigned him to some of the most challenging tasks and high-maintenance clients. While this gave him invaluable insight into the hotel's operations and weaknesses, it also added to the pressure of maintaining his cover. One afternoon, while cleaning near the pool area, Ethan overheard a heated exchange between Mia and Lucas, the housekeeping supervisor. "You can't just ignore this," Mia argued passionately. "The pool equipment is outdated and dangerous for guests and us." Lucas sighed, clearly frustrated. "Mia, we've discussed this. There's no budget for new equipment. You'll just have to make do with what we have." "But it's a safety issue," insisted, unwilling to back down. Lucas's patience snapped. "Enough. If you can't do your job with the tools we have, maybe you shouldn't be here." Mia stormed away, visibly frustrated and on the verge of tears. Unable to stay silent, Ethan followed her to a quiet corner behind the pool bar. "Mia, are you okay?" he asked gently. She jumped, surprised to see him there. "Oh, Ethan? No, I'm not okay," she admitted with a sigh. "I love this job. I love taking care of the guests, but each day it's getting harder to do things right with the little we have." Ethan nodded in understanding. "I get it. Since I started, I've seen so many things that could be improved." She looked at him curiously, a hint of skepticism and admiration in her gaze. "You know, for someone new, you seem to understand a lot about how a hotel runs." For a moment, Ethan wondered if he had said too much, but then he decided to seize the moment. "Well, I've worked in other hotels before, and I've always been interested in how things work behind the scenes, not just doing my job, but understanding how it all fits together." Mia's expression softened, and a spark of enthusiasm lit her eyes. "That's fantastic. I wish more people thought like that around here," Mia said with a hint of excitement in her voice. "I have so many ideas on how we could make things better, but nobody listens." "Tell me some of them," Ethan encouraged, genuinely interested. For the next hour, as they pretended to tidy up around the pool, Mia shared a wealth of innovative ideas. She talked about creating a streamlined communication system between departments, developing cross-training programs so employees could better understand one another's roles, and implementing small but effective improvements that would enhance the guest experience. Ethan was both impressed and inspired. Mia's ideas were not only clever, but reflected a deep understanding of the hotel's operations and a genuine dedication to service excellence. "Mia, these ideas are incredible," he said, his admiration evident. "Why haven't you pitched them formally?" Mia's smile dimmed. I tried once. I even prepared a presentation, but Mr. Villanueva told me to stick to my assigned tasks and stop focusing on things beyond my reach. Ethan's frustration grew. It wasn't just that the hotel was missing out on Mia's potential, it was that her enthusiasm and initiative were being suppressed. Don't give up, he said firmly. Your ideas could really make a difference here. Mia looked at him, a mix of hope and skepticism in her eyes. Do you really think so? Sometimes I wonder if I should look for a job where people actually value what I bring to the table. Ethan responded quickly, surprising even himself with the intensity of his words. No, Mia, this hotel needs people like you, people who care and want to make things better. She studied him for a moment, as if trying to figure him out. There's something different about you, Ethan. You're not like the other new hires I've met. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. Had he been too obvious? But before he could respond, Mia continued, It's refreshing, you know. You actually listen. Most people here just want to get through their shift and go home. Ethan relaxed slightly and smiled. I believe we can all make a difference, no matter what role we're in. Mia's face lit up with a genuine smile. Maybe we just need to be creative about how we present our ideas. If management won't listen, maybe we can start with a few small changes on our own. Ethan raised an eyebrow, intrigued. What do you have in mind? Lowering her voice, Mia explained, I've been thinking we could improve coordination between housekeeping and maintenance. If we synchronize schedules and tasks better, we could operate more efficiently. Ethan nodded, already considering the possibilities. That sounds fantastic. How do we start? As Mia outlined her plan, Ethan felt a surge of excitement. He had found more than an ally. He had found someone who shared his vision of what the Windsor Hotel could be. Mia's passion and dedication fueled his determination, and for the first time since starting this undercover mission, Ethan felt a glimmer of true hope. What he didn't yet realize was that this alliance would soon set him on a collision course with Villanueva and the hotel's management. The small changes they were about to initiate would spark a transformation far larger than either of them could foresee. As the sun dipped below the horizon over the hotel's pool, Ethan felt for the first time that they might actually have a chance to make a lasting difference. Ethan felt more hopeful than ever that real change was within reach. In the following weeks, he and Mia worked tirelessly, implementing small but meaningful changes in secret. They created a coded note system to improve communication between shifts, reorganized cleaning carts for efficiency, and devised a way to prioritize maintenance requests. At first, the adjustments were subtle, barely noticeable to other employees. But gradually, the impact became evident. Guest complaints decreased, rooms were cleaned faster, and the overall atmosphere among the housekeeping staff significantly improved. However, not everything was smooth sailing. Ethan noticed that Villanueva had started watching him more closely. A mixture of suspicion and frustration etched on his face. It was as if the general manager sensed a shift in the hotel's routine, but couldn't pinpoint exactly what or who was responsible. One morning, while cleaning near the lobby, Ethan overheard a conversation between Villanueva and Maria, the head of personnel. Something's up with the housekeeping staff, Villanueva said, irritation in his voice. They're suddenly too efficient and organized. I don't like it. Maria seemed puzzled. But, sir, isn't that a good thing? Complaints have decreased and guests seem happier. That's not the point, Villanueva snapped. It's about control. If they start thinking they can make changes on their own, what's next? Demanding raises? Better working conditions? No, we need to put an end to this. A chill ran down Ethan's spine. He had known they were walking on thin ice, but he hadn't expected Villanueva to react so negatively. Later that day during his break, Ethan shared what he'd overheard with Mia. She turned pale. Do you think he suspects us? She asked in a whisper. Ethan shook his head. I don't think he knows it's us specifically, but Villanueva knows something's changing and he doesn't like it. Mia bit her lip, deep in thought. Maybe we should stop. If they find out, we could lose our jobs. A pang of guilt struck Ethan. Mia didn't know he was the hotel owner, and while he was safe from being fired, the threat was very real for her and the other employees. No, he said finally, surprising even himself with his conviction. We can't stop now. What we're doing is making things better for everyone. We have to keep going. Mia looked at him, a mix of admiration and concern in her eyes. But how? If Villanueva is looking for someone to blame, it's only a matter of time before he figures out it's us. Ethan paused, thinking, maybe it's time to go bigger. If we get more people involved, it'll be harder for Villanueva to target anyone specifically. Mia raised an eyebrow, intrigued. How would that work? A grassroots movement, Ethan said, feeling the idea take shape in his mind. We'll share our ideas with more employees, not all at once, but gradually, starting with the ones we trust most. Mia nodded, a glint of determination in her gaze. Together, they would build something lasting, one trusted ally at a time. A small smile spread across Mia's face. This could really work. If more people see the benefits, management will have a harder time ignoring us. Over the next few weeks, Ethan and Mia worked tirelessly to expand their network. They shared their ideas with Daniel, a seasoned waiter, with Claire, a perceptive receptionist, and even with Lucas, the housekeeping supervisor. To their surprise, Lucas was receptive once he saw the positive results firsthand. The movement grew quietly, like an underground river, as employees began communicating more effectively, sharing resources, and increasing efficiency. Gradually, the hotel's atmosphere shifted to a more collaborative, positive place. But the storm Ethan had anticipated finally hit. One Friday afternoon, Villanueva called an emergency meeting for the entire staff. He paced in front of the assembled employees, his face a mask of barely contained fury. Unauthorized changes have been made to the hotel's procedures, he began, his voice icy. This is unacceptable. Anyone caught altering established protocols will be terminated immediately. A tense silence filled the room. Ethan could feel the fear radiating from his colleagues. He was about to step forward and take responsibility when Mia suddenly spoke up. Mr. Villanueva, she said, her voice trembling but steady, the changes we've made have improved our service. Guests are more satisfied, and we're able to do our jobs more efficiently. Villanueva turned to her, his eyes blazing. Are you admitting you're behind this, Mia? Before she could answer, Daniel, the veteran waiter, stepped forward. It's not just Mia, sir. We've all contributed. That's right, added Claire from the reception desk. The results speak for themselves. Complaints have gone down by 30% since we implemented the new communication system. One by one, employees spoke up, defending the changes and explaining how they had improved both their work and guest satisfaction. Villanueva looked stunned, clearly unprepared for such a unified stand. This is insubordination, he stammered. You can't just decide to change things on your own. Ethan knew it was time to intervene. He stepped forward, aware that what he was about to do could change everything. Mr. Villanueva, he said calmly, these changes are not a threat, they're an opportunity. The staff has shown initiative and dedication to improving the hotel. Shouldn't we at least consider their ideas? Villanueva glared at him, a spark of recognition flickering in his eyes. So, you're the new guy, the one who's been stirring up trouble since he arrived. Ethan kept his composure, knowing all eyes were on him. I haven't caused any trouble, sir. I've simply been doing my job to the best of my ability, just like everyone here. The tension in the room was thick, and for a moment it seemed as though Villanueva might explode. But unexpectedly, Maria, the head of personnel, spoke up. Mr. Villanueva, she said firmly, I think we should listen to what they have to say. The numbers don't lie. If these changes are improving our service, shouldn't we at least consider them? Villanueva glanced around, realizing he was quickly losing control of the situation. With a frustrated growl, he finally said, Fine. You have 1 week to present me with a full report on all these changes and their outcomes. After that, I'll decide what stays and what goes. And if I find out anyone has been hiding information or going behind my back, there will be consequences. Understood? A murmur of agreement ran through the room as employees began to disperse. Ethan exchanged a glance with Mia. They had won a small victory, but both knew the real battle was just beginning. What Ethan didn't know was that this confrontation had planted a deep seed of suspicion in Villanueva's mind. The general manager was determined to uncover the identity of this new server, who seemed to know so much and have such influence among the staff. The storm that was brewing would be bigger than Ethan had anticipated, and soon he would find himself fighting not only for the hotel's future, but also to keep his true identity hidden. In the days following the meeting, a whirlwind of activity took over the hotel. Ethan, Mia, and the rest of the team worked tirelessly to document every change they had implemented and the positive results they'd seen. Sleepless nights, tense discussions, and an overall sense of urgency filled the atmosphere as they prepared for Villanueva's inspection. Meanwhile, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling of Villanueva's eyes on him. The general manager seemed to be watching him more intently than ever, his gaze following Ethan through the hallways, scrutinizing his every move. One afternoon, while Ethan was cleaning the bar area, he overheard a conversation that froze him to his core. "I'm telling you, Maria." Villanueva's voice was low but intense. "There's something off about this new guy. I've been looking into his work history, and there's no record of him at any of the hotels he claims to have worked at." Maria sounded skeptical. "Are you sure, Villanueva? Maybe he used a different name, or—" "No," Villanueva interrupted. "It's more than that. The way he talks, the way he understands the business. He's not just a waiter, and I'm going to find out exactly who he really is." Panic gripped Ethan. His mind raced, scrambling for a way out of this increasingly dangerous situation. He knew he couldn't keep up the charade much longer, but he also couldn't reveal his identity yet, not when they were so close to achieving real change within the hotel. That night, Ethan barely slept, tossing and turning in the cramped bed in the employee quarters. He knew that the choices he made over the next few days could affect not only his future, but also the futures of all the employees who had come to trust him. The next morning, as he prepared for his shift, Ethan came to a decision. He needed to confide in someone, and he knew that person had to be Mia. She had been his ally from the beginning, and deserved to know the truth. He found her in the supply room, organizing towels. "Mia," he said quietly, his tone urgent, "I need to talk to you in private." Something in his voice must have alarmed her because she nodded without hesitation, following him out of the supply room and into a secluded corner of the hallway. Without asking any questions, Mia followed Ethan down to a quiet corner in the hotel basement. Taking a deep breath, Ethan began, his heart racing. "Mia, there's something I need to tell you. I'm not who you think I am." Mia looked at him, a mix of confusion and concern on her face. "What are you talking about, Ethan?" Ethan hesitated, then finally let the truth spill out. He revealed his real identity as the owner of the Windsor Hotel, his undercover plan, and his reasons for taking on this mission. He watched Mia's expression shift from surprise to shock, and then to something he couldn't quite read. When he finished, silence hung heavy between them. At last, Mia spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why are you telling me now?" "Because Villanueva is on to me," Ethan replied. "And because I need your help. We've come too far to stop now." Mia stared at him for what felt like an eternity. Then, to his surprise, a small smile played on her lips. "You know, part of me always suspected there was something different about you. But this is unbelievable." "I know," Ethan said, feeling an immense relief that she wasn't angry. "Will you help me?" Mia nodded slowly. "Of course, but now that I know who you are, I have a few bigger ideas I'd like to share." Before Ethan could respond, the basement door burst open, and Villanueva stormed in, his face contorted in triumphant fury. "I knew it," he shouted. "I knew you were up to something. Who are you really? A spy for the competition? An undercover journalist?" Ethan stood tall, knowing this was the moment of truth. "No, Villanueva, my name is Ethan Reyes. I am the owner of this hotel." The silence that followed was deafening. Villanueva looked as though he'd been struck by lightning, his mouth opening and closing in shock. Even Mia, who had just learned the truth moments before, seemed equally taken aback to hear it spoken aloud. This is impossible," Villanueva finally stammered. "Why would the owner of the hotel be working as a waiter?" "To see what really happens here," Ethan replied, his voice steady. "To understand why a hotel that was once the pride of the city is now losing its edge. And what I've seen has deeply disappointed me." Villanueva began to regain his composure, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Mr. Reyes, if you had complaints about my management, we could have discussed them in my office. There was no need for this charade." "Really?" Ethan replied, his voice filled with irony. Like the last time I brought up the hotel's issues with you, and you assured me everything was perfectly under control? No, Villanueva. I needed to see the truth for myself. At that moment, Maria, the head of personnel, appeared at the doorway, drawn by the noise. "What's going on here?" she asked, looking bewildered by the scene unfolding in front of her. "What's happening?" Ethan said, addressing Maria, Villanueva, and Mia, "is that it's time for real change at the Windsor Hotel, and that change starts now." The atmosphere in the basement was thick with tension and anticipation. Ethan knew that the next few minutes would determine the hotel's future, and the future of everyone working in it. The confrontation he had been preparing for had finally arrived, and he was ready to face it head-on. The tension that had been building for weeks finally erupted, and Ethan was ready to confront it. After his declaration, a heavy silence settled, broken only when Villanueva finally found his voice. "Mr. Reyes," he began, his tone laced with forced respect and poorly masked resentment. "If you have complaints about my management, I'm more than willing to discuss them. But this theater you've staged is completely unnecessary and unprofessional." Ethan stayed calm, fully aware that every word and action in the coming moments would be critical. "This isn't just about complaints, Villanueva. It's about truly understanding how this hotel functions from the ground up. What I've seen here shows that we need a fundamental change in the way we operate." "But what's wrong with our current way of doing things?" Maria interjected, still trying to wrap her mind around the revelation. "Numbers aren't everything, Maria," Ethan said gently. "I've seen disengaged employees, wasted resources, and a culture that stifles innovation and growth. But I've also seen the incredible potential of this team if they're given the chance to shine." Mia, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. "It's true," she said, her voice gaining strength. "The changes we've started in recent weeks have improved both our efficiency and morale. And it all happened because someone finally listened to us and valued our ideas." Villanueva's discomfort grew, and he responded, "Mr. Reyes, I understand your desire to improve things, but these employees don't have the experience or vision to make decisions on how a luxury hotel should be run. There are reasons why things are done the way they are." Ethan's patience wore thin. "And do those reasons include treating employees as if they're disposable? Ignoring their ideas? Creating an environment of fear and mistrust?" Villanueva's face flushed with anger. "I've kept this hotel running. I've met financial targets year after year." "At what cost, Villanueva?" Ethan shot back. "Yes, you've met short-term targets, but in the process, you've eroded the foundation of what makes this hotel great, its people." He turned to Maria and Mia. "What I've seen over these weeks is a team full of talented individuals, people like Mia, who have amazing ideas but have never been given a platform to share them. These are employees who care deeply about our guests and about doing their jobs well, but they've been demoralized by a leadership that fails to value them." Maria nodded slowly, as if she were seeing things from a new perspective. "It's true, we've struggled with staff turnover, and employee satisfaction surveys haven't been favorable in recent years." "Exactly," Ethan said, seizing the moment. "And that dissatisfaction is reflected in the guest experience, too. We can have the most luxurious facilities in the world, but if our staff isn't motivated and empowered, we'll never achieve the excellence we aspire to." Villanueva, sensing he was losing ground, made one final attempt. "Mr. Reyes, I understand your point, but changing the entire management system of the hotel is a huge risk. We could lose everything we've built." Ethan gave a calm, hopeful smile. "Or, Villanueva, we could create something even better. I'm not asking to throw away your experience. Instead, I'm suggesting a new approach that combines your expertise with the fresh ideas and passion of our team." Turning to everyone present, he continued, "What I'm proposing is a complete transformation of how we operate. We'll implement a participatory management system. Every department will have the opportunity to propose improvements and solutions. We'll form multidisciplinary teams to address the hotel's challenges, and most importantly, we're going to invest in our staff through training and development." Mia couldn't hold back her excitement. "That sounds incredible. I have so many ideas on how we could enhance the guest experience with just a few simple changes." Maria, still a bit skeptical, nodded slowly. It might actually work, and it could help solve some of the communication issues between departments. Realizing he was becoming increasingly isolated in his resistance, Villanueva finally relented. "Fine," he said, "we can give it a try, but how are we going to implement something like this?" Ethan's smile grew, feeling they were finally moving in the right direction. "We'll start by holding a series of meetings with all staff. I want to hear ideas from everyone, from the waitstaff to the managers. Then we'll form working groups to develop and put the best proposals into action." He looked at Villanueva. "And I'll need your help. Your experience will be essential to ensure that these changes are implemented smoothly and without compromising the quality of our service." Villanueva looked momentarily surprised, but then nodded firmly. "Understood, Mr. Reyes. If this is the direction you want for the hotel, I'll do everything I can to make it succeed." "Excellent," Ethan said. "We have a lot of work ahead of us. Maria, please arrange a general meeting for tomorrow morning. It's time for all the staff to understand the changes on the horizon." As Maria and Villanueva left to start preparations, Ethan stayed back with Mia. "Thank you," he said simply. Mia looked at him, curious. "For what?" "For believing in me, even after you found out who I am, for not giving up on your ideas despite the obstacles. People like you are what makes this hotel truly special." Mia smiled, her eyes gleaming with excitement and determination. "Thank you for giving us this chance. We won't let you down." As they left the basement, Ethan felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges, resistance, and moments of doubt. But seeing the hope and enthusiasm in Mia's face, he knew he'd made the right choice. The Windsor Hotel was about to undergo its most ambitious transformation yet. Ethan was determined to make this transformation a success, not just for the hotel, but for every person who called it their workplace. The following month was a whirlwind of activity at the Windsor Hotel. The general meeting he had called marked the beginning of a new era. At first, there was skepticism and resistance from some employees and middle managers who feared the change. However, as the new ideas took shape and the positive results became evident, even the most reluctant began to embrace the transformation. Now, operating openly as the hotel's owner, Ethan stayed involved at every level of operation. He launched a day-in-the-life program where managers, including himself, spent a day working in different positions across the hotel. This program not only kept management in touch with the day-to-day realities, but also fostered a newfound respect and understanding among all levels of the organization. Mia quickly became a cornerstone of the hotel's new structure. Her creativity and deep understanding of hotel operations led to her being appointed as the Director of Innovation and Continuous Improvement, a position created specifically for her. Under her leadership, numerous enhancements were introduced, including a streamlined internal communication system and a guest experience personalization program. Villanueva, to the surprise of many, including himself, flourished in this new environment. Once he overcame his initial resistance to change, his experience and business knowledge proved invaluable in implementing the new ideas effectively. He even took on the role of a mentor, guiding younger employees and sharing his expertise while learning fresh approaches from them in return. Maria, as head of personnel, led a complete overhaul of the hotel's human resources practices. She implemented professional development programs, improved employee benefits, and created a more inclusive and collaborative work environment. As the months passed, the impact of these changes became unmistakable. Guest satisfaction reached new heights, staff turnover dropped drastically, and the Windsor Hotel began to gain recognition across the industry for its innovative, people-centered approach. A year after Ethan's big reveal, the hotel hosted a gala to celebrate its transformation. In the elegant ballroom, surrounded by employees, guests, and industry leaders, Ethan stood up to give a speech. "1 year ago," he began, his voice carrying through the silent room, "I put on a server's uniform and entered this hotel to understand what was going wrong. What I discovered was that our greatest asset, our most valuable treasure, was being overlooked, our people." He paused, taking in the faces around him. Mia, radiant in an elegant dress, Villanueva, who now wore a proud smile, and Maria, nodding in support. Today, A year later, I'm here to tell you that the success we've achieved is not mine, it's yours. Every server who suggested a new way to improve room service, every receptionist who helped make check-ins more efficient, every chef who brought fresh ideas to the menu, this success belongs to each and every one of you. Success belongs to all of you, Ethan declared. Applause erupted throughout the room, filling the air with an energy that he let wash over him. When the applause finally quieted, he continued, "But this is only the beginning. The Windsor Hotel has always been known for its luxury. But now we will be known for something more. For being a place where every employee is valued, every idea is heard, and where excellence is not just a goal but a way of life." He raised his glass. "To the future of the Windsor Hotel, to each of you, the heart and soul of this place, and to all the guests who honor us with their presence and allow us to do what we love every day." The toast was met with a standing ovation. As Ethan stepped down from the stage, employees and guests surrounded him, eager to share their own stories of how the changes had impacted their lives. Amid the warm bustle, Ethan found himself face to face with Mia. She looked at him with a smile, her expression full of admiration and gratitude. "You know," she said softly, "when I found out who you really were, I never imagined we'd come this far." Ethan chuckled. "Neither did I. But you taught me something important, Mia. You taught me to see the potential in every person, in every idea. You were the spark that ignited all of this." Mia blushed slightly. "Well, you were the one who had the courage to make it happen, to risk everything for a vision." Ethan glanced around the room, taking in the happy, proud faces of his employees and the satisfaction in the eyes of their guests. "It was worth every minute," he replied. He could see in the joy and pride of those around him the answer to every doubt he had faced. The journey hadn't been easy. There were times he had felt overwhelmed by the challenges, days when he had questioned every decision. But now, he knew with absolute certainty that he had done the right thing. The Windsor Hotel was no longer just a business. It was a community, a family. Together, they had created something truly special. As the evening continued, Ethan mingled with guests, listening to their stories, sharing laughs, and making plans for the future. In every conversation, every handshake, and every hug, he felt the confirmation of a simple truth. True luxury wasn't in high thread count sheets or crystal chandeliers. It was in the passion, dedication, and spirit of the people who brought the hotel to life every single day. The Windsor Hotel had been reborn, stronger and brighter than ever. And as Ethan looked toward the future, he knew the best was yet to come.